right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We haven't done a webinar in a while. I think we took almost all of Q3 off. Um, and, I think everybody had a similarly odd last year. In general, for us, it was actually pretty decent, but it was definitely different. There were a lot of changes to the space in general. It was changes to our industry, changes to the product, all that sort of thing. So what I really want to go over today is what's new inside of Iconic, get some feedback of what's new inside of your guys' world potentially and new things that you're looking at, and take a look back at what we had accomplished in 2020 and then looking into the future a little bit. So general overview of the product and the new features that we've added, what we're looking to do in the new year, and then any questions we can answer for you. I think first and foremost, let's talk about some numbers. So in 2020, we had quite a bit of information regarding, you know, uh, the stats around Iconic. And if you guys have not seen our Iconic Media Stats blog, I will share that with you a little bit later, but it's right on the iconic.io website underneath blog. And these are just some key numbers that came out of that. So because Iconic's a hybrid cloud system, one of the things that is worth noting is that in 2020, the Iconic data was 64% cloud and 35% on-prem, and cloud raised 12% during that time. So even before the pandemic and everything with remote workflows, we actually were a little bit more heavily weighted on data living in the cloud than on-prem, but it was just over 50%. We saw that rise significantly. The other thing that we noticed is that 12 petabytes of data were added to the cloud inside of Iconic inside of 2020. That was almost a 5% increase in data going into the cloud. Amazon S3 is the largest player for that right now, and they increased almost 500% inside of 2020 as well, or 1,000%, I'm sorry, inside of 2020. We noticed that small to medium-sized teams were the ones that were adopting the platform most. So the largest amount of businesses were in this small space, and that space grew almost 200% as well. M&E does continue to be the lead adoption of media management. That's not really a surprise, but what is somewhat surprising is it's only 60% of our customer base, meaning that 40% of the Iconic customers out there are not in traditional media and entertainment. And I think that sends a pretty big picture as to how much media is being created outside of the traditional spaces. The other thing I found very interesting is that video represents 63% of all of the data in Iconic, and that's actually down 14%. That means there are more images and raw data and PDFs and things along those lines in 2020, which just means with all the growth and adoption that it's being used for more than just media management. So we looked at some numbers. Now let's look at a chart. And I think the biggest thing to look at here is that we had 22 petabytes of new data added to Iconic in 2020. And this is kind of a breakdown of where that stuff lives. So you can see Amazon S3 is definitely the largest number there. But we can see that we have almost the same amount of data on on-prem storages using the Iconic Storage Gateway. IBM Cloud is actually very large. Google Cloud Storage, very large. And Backblaze is actually at 1.4 petabytes of data. And then we actually have 100 terabytes of data in other storages, meaning cloud storages that are not officially the kind of big three in this case. So really interesting to see the trends that have happened around cloud storage and mixing that with hybrid on-prem storage. But you can see in the graph here, just over a third of the data in Iconic right now lives in traditional file systems, your SANs, your NASs, even data on a laptop. The rest of it's actually living in cloud storage, which is a pretty impressive feat. So let's go over a little bit of what we actually added in 2020. So these are all new features that were added to the system in the last year. Versioning, which allows you to actually build version stacks on top of individual assets. Poster frames, so custom poster frame creation and export. Those can be used for just visibility and also for maybe transferring still frames from high res to people that don't have video tools. Draw on annotations, which was a pretty big one for us. So we've always had marker-based annotations, but the ability to draw on frame and point things out. AI transcription, which has been pretty widely adopted now and is pretty cost-effective as well. File sharing links as opposed to file sharing emails. We've always had the email capabilities, but we added the ability to make open links. And then we built a dashboard around the system as well. So what I'd like to do now is just kind of dive into each one of those features so that you guys can kind of see what it is if you haven't seen the platform in a while and you haven't seen any of this functionality. So I'll show you the things. All right. So let's hop out of our slide deck for just a second here and hop on back to Iconik. And so first up on the list, we've got versioning. So when you're building versioning inside of Iconik, the idea here is that you can go to any given asset within the system and we can create a version stack on top of that. And there's multiple ways to create a version stack. And I think what I'm actually going to do here is rather than use some media that's in the system, I'm going to actually shoot some fresh new video. So we're going to do this live. So here's my cell phone. I'm going to turn it into selfie mode here once it wakes up. Come on, figure yourself out. Is my camera not working? Of course it doesn't work. The one thing that always works all the time doesn't work the one time you want it to work. Yeah, my camera is literally locked up on my iPhone. Let's fix that problem. All right, there we go. Fixed it. So I'm going to take a video of myself, and it's just going to be me talking to you guys. And if you want to spin around, we can see my laptop, everything along those lines. Just wanted to talk, have about 10 seconds of video. That way we can make a new piece of content. And I'm just going to actually from my cell phone, and this is going to be the most ghetto demo you've ever seen, but I'm going to open Iconik on my cell phone, which is opening right now. There's Iconik. I'm going to log in. And I'm going to hit upload. I'll upload from my cell phone, choose from my photo library. There's the video we just did. Hit add. And I'm going to add a little bit of metadata right here inside my cell phone. So we will say webinar. And done. And then let's put in our required metadata. Done. And hit the update button and hit the upload button. And now we have a new asset that will be coming into Iconik in just a few seconds here. So there's my new video that I just uploaded from my cell phone. And what I can do now with this is because I've got the proxy is being created right now in the background, I could actually do a revision against this video. And there's a few ways I can do that. One, I can just upload a new asset directly associated with it. And this is what you would do in the case of maybe I've got a second revision on an edit or something along those lines, and I did that completely offline, not a problem. The other option we have is if we're using this on a storage gateway, we can actually revision it by simply putting a underscore in place. So let's actually put this on a storage gateway so you can see that process. And what I'm going to do is do a transfer of this, and I'm going to send it to my laptop, and I'm going to put it into a folder called Iconik. Whoops, I needed to. There we go. Put it to my laptop. So. Webinar and hit transfer. And so what we'll do now is take this file from the cloud. I'm actually going to send it down onto a storage gateway that's running on-prem on my machine. And while that is doing the transfer, I am going to shoot another video with my cell phone now that my camera is actually working properly. And I'll take this, and this time it will be just a demo video of my monitors and my things going on and my room. All right, great. And this time I'm going to send that into the Iconik storage gateway. And I'm going to go ahead and just open that path on my machine. So you can see now this is inside a folder that is on my local machine. You can see the transfer completed, and there's the original high-res video that I handled. What I'm going to do is take the video we just shot here. I'm going to copy it in there. And what I'm going to do is actually, instead of naming it 4277, I'm going to name it 426_v2. And what that's going to do is tell the Iconik storage gateway that when it picks up this file, that it is a new version of that exact asset. And it's going to automatically revision that for us. So there's no effort I have to do to revision this file. It's just going to go ahead and revision it for us automatically behind the scenes. And you can see now it went offline behind my screen there. And you can see there is a new version in progress that is being created right now. Our storage gateway is creating the proxy for that. As soon as the proxy is complete, we'll get an update and we'll have our entire version stack. Now, the last way we could do this is we could revision yet again directly from a piece of content, from our phone. So I will flip my phone back out one last time, take another little video here, and this one is version 3.0. My hand is in the shot, which is not supposed to be there, so we'll move it out of the way. And that's going to be important later for something else we're going to show off. And then I'm going to hit stop. And back here in Iconik land, I'm going to switch to the latest so I can see that version 2 is in here. And here's the second shot I did. What I'm going to do now is back on my cell phone, I'm going to hop into Iconik. I'm going to go to that asset inside of Iconik. And this is, again, the worst demo ever from remote. But there's our item that we have 2 versions of. I'm going to tap the little versions tab and hit add and say upload a new asset. Go to my photo library and grab version 3, hit choose. And as soon as it uploads, there we go. It is now uploading version 3. You can see directly on my Iconik system here that version 3 is now in progress. And we've got a 3rd version. And now this entire process has been a little wild, right? Because I started that file from a cell phone, uploaded it, I transferred it to a SAN, worked on it a little bit, potentially made some notes to it, revisioned it by just throwing it into a folder. And then I actually created a 3rd version yet again in the field, took that, and then I pushed that further back in as yet another version of it. And we'll see that this version is almost done with the transcode. It says we're not at the latest version. And there we go. We're back in and we've got an entire version stack, version 3. And you can see that is the clip I just shot. Take another little video here, and this one is version 3.0. So our versioning stacking is working. So with that said, I think that kind of covers versioning. And again, we'll come back to some questions and answers later on this, so I don't want to go too far. The next is drawn on annotations. So in the past, if you'd used Iconik, you were always able to mark an in and mark an out in there and say, Stratocaster in shot here, right? But that's just time-based information. I can click that, play just that into the out, figure out what's going on. But maybe I want to be a little bit more specific and I want to draw on the frame. So I can mark an in and mark an out, and let's find to the point right about there, mark an out. And then I can go into my drawing tools and make a big old box around my hand, maybe a big old arrow on it, maybe 2 arrows on it or 3 arrows on it. Say, get rid of the hand, stupid. And now we've made a time-based annotation that has a drawn-on annotation for it, and we can play along and see that. So as part of the review and approve toolkits inside of Iconik, this is just an easier way to point out what might be going on with your various different pieces of information as you're handing them around. And this can be via review during the review and approve process. This can be during the, kind of pre-production or annotation process. And this can even be an archival if you want to point out things that you might want to change or logos that are, no longer valid anymore or things along those lines. So powerful tools around annotation. Next up, we got poster frames. So what poster frames allow you to do, and I'm going to close a few tabs here to make the screen bigger. We can go to any frame inside of a video, and we have a poster frame tab here. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can actually, from the video itself, click the camera here or take snapshot in the poster frame panel, and it will allow you to either do from original, which goes into the original high res and gives you a higher quality thumbnail, or from preview, which goes into the proxy file and does it immediately. And when you do that, that creates a poster frame for that particular item. And now when I'm in search results, you'll notice when that clip comes back, that frame now is the first frame that is visible in the thumbnail. Now, if I mouse over it, I get my whole video always like I used to, but it falls back to the thumbnail that I decided that I wanted. Now, the other thing we can do here is if we want to upload a custom thumbnail, right? So I could go and maybe I'm going to take a quick screenshot of my face here, and we're going to go into Photoshop. I should have opened Photoshop before we started the webinar because nothing better than watching an icon bounce for a minute. Give me a chance for water. Stay hydrated, folks. All right, so you create a new, and we're from my clipboard, and I'll paste that on, and then maybe I want to do an inverse on that, and I, maybe want to put some text on there and say scary, right? All right, and then I'm going to save that to my desktop as a PNG. Save, desktop, custom thumbnail.png. And as soon as that's saved, close Photoshop. We don't need that anymore. I can go to my upload new in the poster frame section, click that button, go to my custom thumbnail, choose upload. We'll upload that, and now that will be the new thumbnail that is used for that particular clip. If I hop back to my search results now, you can see that thumbnail is what happens. So this can be useful if you're thumbnailing for even collections, if you want a custom thumbnail for like a season or an episode or something along those lines, or you're using this maybe for client delivery and you want to make sure that there's a very specific frame with some information on it, you can do that all by yourself. Cool. Next up is AI transcription support. So I was obviously talking here. Take another little video here. All right. So what I'm going to do is open up our transcription panel, and I'm going to hit transcribe. And you'll notice we have quite a few languages available within transcription now. So English, French, German, Portuguese, and Spanish now out of the box with Iconik. And I only speak English. So I'm going to hit transcribe in English. And what this is going to do is submit an AI transcription job. Generally speaking, these are very fast to come back. In fact, they're very, very fast as you start to get longer form content. You can throw an hour or two at this and you'll still come back in about 2 or 3 minutes. With this clip, because it was only 12 seconds long, my guess is this will return in the next 15 to 20 seconds. It normally goes pretty quickly to actually get all this information back. So let's open up our transcriptions panel. Whoops. Where did my transcription go? Did it get applied to an old version? What happened? It was there for a second. Strange. All right, so for whatever reason, my transcription showed up and vanished. I'm going to go to a different clip just so we can show off what this looks like on a formal clip. So you can see that this is an interview that was run through. We have the entire transcript of that available in here. I can click on any given word inside that transcript. It will take me to that specific location inside that interview. If I hit play, we actually get it to chase along with the actual text that is going. So the text is being highlighted as it's being spoken. We can mark in and out points by highlighting entire sections of text. So that made my in and out point markers so I can make comments, and I can still draw on frame with those in and out point markers if I'd like to. And then we can search within the actual clip itself. So I can say, hey, show me every time that Fortnite was mentioned, and I can, scrub up and down here with that. I can also kick this into segment mode, and I can fix errors. So if there were specific bits of information that the AI got a little bit wrong, bad timing info, bad translation, whatever it might be, I can go in and fix that particular phrase, and make that available. And once that's done, I have the ability to download this as a raw text transcript, an SRT, or a VTT captioning file. So you can use this as a captioning interface within your system pretty easily. You'll also notice that there is a manage speakers button there, and that allows me to choose the different speakers for the transcription. The transcription will diarize your speakers automatically, and then you can give them names. And if it is incorrect, you can also change it to any of people that were speakers in that environment for any given segment. So pretty powerful tool there. This also works as a search tool. If I hop back out to my filters and take a look in my transcription text, I can search for any word that I want. And you can see that anytime somebody said a specific word inside the system, that's going to pop up. Or I can say, hey, show me all the clips where somebody said the word Fortnite. So searching across your entire media library, pretty powerful based on transcription. And I think what's the most interesting about this is that the cost for this is relatively reasonable. It's under $2 an hour of content. So that's audio or video, doesn't really matter. You're going to spend under $2 to get an hour of transcription back. So even in larger projects where you have 20, 30 hours worth of, speaking going on, it's still relatively inexpensive to get that all back and make it searchable and that sort of thing. All right. Next up on the things we added last year, we had, some of you may be aware, but on any given item within Iconik, you've always been able to go and share that item, and you could send it to anybody you wanted to. I could send it to myself as a share link and hit send, and away it goes. But now within the scope of the new share functionality, we've added this generate shareable link. And what we can actually do is go to any given item in the system, and we can take, oh, well, there's our transcription, if you guys notice, from what I was saying earlier, and you can see that it's pretty much spot on. So I can go to my share section and hit the share button. And this time I can say, you know what, don't want anybody to be able to download, but people can make comments, and I'll let people see the transcript and previous versions. And I'm going to put a password of this called on webinar. I'm going to generate a shareable link, copy that, hit the finish button. And now I'm going to do something fun. I'm going to share that into the chat inside of our Zoom webinar. So if anybody wants to go take a look at this, you're going to be able to go take a look at that particular clip that I just shot a few minutes ago that now lives on my NAS and in my cloud storage. And you'll be able to see the transcription that happened. You'll be able to see the previous versions, and you'll be able to play it. But I didn't let you download it. And the nice thing about that is that I didn't have to actually put any email addresses in if I wanted to send it out so that 20 different people could take a look at it. I could just send them that link, and away you go. So another beneficial feature. Last thing I'm going to talk about today, before we hop over to some future stuff and then into Q&A, is we've built a new admin dashboard within Iconik. So what you can see now is you can build these dashboard widgets, and those widgets can be either job lists or job stats lists. When you create the widget, it says what title do you want to do, and then what job type or types do you want to show up in that dashboard, which statuses do you want to look for, which object types are you working on. Is there a range that you want to look about? So stuff that happened today, stuff that happened yesterday, that sort of thing. So I could say yesterday's failed jobs. And I could say, you know what? I want job type to be, actually, we'll just say transfers, right? So I'm going to say yesterday's failed transfers. And I can say job status failed, object type assets, and period was yesterday. Hit apply, and I can filter it down to only my jobs or all the jobs in the system, or jobs started by a specific person. In this case, I'm just going to let it be, hit create. And now I've got a new widget. You can see all of the failed transfers that happened yesterday, right? So, and you can have as many of these widgets as you want. You can move them around and reorganize them how it makes sense for you. No problems there. And you don't lose the old jobs view. The old jobs view, if you feel warm and fuzzy with that, that is still available with all the filters available. It's just inside the jobs history, but now you have this nice little dashboard. Great. So we just ripped through quite a few of the new features from 2020 in a pretty short fashion. And that is admittedly not everything we released, but I think those are the big ones that most people may not be aware of. I'm going to pop my little presentation back open here so we can talk a little bit about the future. So as we move into 2021, we're already halfway through Q1, as you guys know, and we've got some things that we have slated for release by the end of Q1. First thing, we've been asked for this a lot. There are some reasons why it took a little longer than necessary that I won't go into, but we're going to have our beta for the Final Cut X workflow extension panel available. If you are interested in that, please either open a support ticket with us or just shoot me an email. We'll get you added to the beta list. And as soon as we have that beta available, we'll be sending out to people to try it, knowing full well it's beta. Our hope is to have that released in early Q2, but we're being realistic there. Next up, we're going to be releasing what we call ACL templates in Q1. Some of you that have been using the system might know that as you create new storages in the system or new users, default ACLs on assets, collections, those sorts of things are defined by primary group only. What we're doing is allowing you to be able to create a template of not just the primary group, but other users, other groups, and other permissions as well. So this group has read access, this group has read-write access, my primary group has read-write access on assets that get created in the system, just to make adding new content to the system in variable work groups very easy. And then tying into that, we're going to allow you to create ACL inheritance at the collection level. A lot of our customers have said, hey, we've got these great collections and we use them all the time to share things, but we have to keep pressing down the ACLs because someone else in the system has created these assets. So what we're doing is allowing you to apply collection ACLs and then say any asset or collection that gets added to that collection will automatically inherit the parent's ACLs. And this will make adding new users to the system to be able to see new content as easy as just adding it to a new collection. Next up, ISG install simplification. So if anybody's using an Iconik storage gateway with local proxy transcoding, you know that it's always been a bit of a bear to get the proxy transcoding bit of it going. What we are going to be doing this quarter is including and slipstreaming all of that capability right into the installer. So the ISG installer will be a double click, put in a few bits of information, and you're up and running. And then lastly, we are going to be adding in Mogert support into the Premiere Pro panel. So if anybody's using Mogerts already, they're a relatively new feature inside of Premiere Pro. They are handled a little differently than other media. So we had to do some changes to support that, but we'll be supporting that as well. Looking even further into the future, we're saying one of the biggest things we want to focus on in 2021, and we've already begun work on this, but we know it's going to take a while to do, is we want to provide built-in facial recognition and object recognition. And what we mean by that is private trainable face recognition and object recognition. So obviously, since day one, we've been able to use generic object recognition, but that's not very useful if you have very specific media types or people or things in your system. And if you're a smaller company, the public AIs are never going to be aware of your specific niche market product or your CEO or, you know, just a presenter from mid-level management. So our goal here is to enable you to do that and to do that as cost effectively as possible. We'll know a little bit more about what the real pricing is on that, if any, in the future, but we're being full on honest that our goal is for that to be free inside the system. We're not making promises of that yet because we don't know what our infrastructure cost is going to be as we roll it out. Next up, we're going to have an automation engine. So right now, you can do lots of automation in Iconik between webhooks, custom actions, the API, that sort of thing. But we've been asked time and time again, hey, can you make that a little easier? So we're going to build an automation engine into the admin UI, allowing you to do things like when this metadata field equals this, start a transfer to that. Or when this job type fails, start a metadata update to these asset types, or things along those lines. Just adding more power to automation in Iconik without you having to know how the API works. This is not going to change any of the API integrations, custom actions, or webhooks that we currently support in Iconik. So you're still good with all the work you've done so far. It's just a way to maybe simplify some of those processes. We're going to improve proxy editing. So one of the biggest issues we've seen with proxy editing is currently, if you're using our proxy editing workflow, you have stereo only audio mixdowns. And if you're working with 4-channel or 8-channel audio, your proxies are not one-to-one channel mapped for the audio side of the edit. And then you have to do some manual processes to do shot replacement and things along those lines. So we're going to bring automation in place for creating edit proxies optionally, and those will be one-to-one mapped audio so that the Premiere panel and the Final Cut panel will be aware of that, and you'll have one-to-one proxies, edit proxies generated in Iconik as opposed to just our web proxy, which is what the current workflow is. Next up, a Mac and Windows native uploader app. So yeah, you can upload to cloud storage right now and scan it. You can upload via our web uploader. The ISG does a killer job of uploading, but we've noticed that web browsers themselves have some inherent limitations in uploading large data sets to cloud storage. So we are going to build a Mac and Windows native uploader app that just will have the same acceleration that our ISG does and everything along those lines. And then you can download it and use it and have just a little bit more robustness around uploading. And then last but not least, we're focusing on a transcode framework. As many of you may know, you can do this again now with the API, but it's fairly advanced. You have to listen to a call, you have to hand that off with APIs to another transcoder. And so what we're going to do is make this a little more point and click as well. I want to create a new ProRes version of this using my on-prem Vantage. I want to use AWS Media Convert to create a 4K HEVC file, so on and so forth, and be able to trigger those natively within Iconik via point and click and not via the API. And that's just a short list. We have a lot more on the table, but I think these were the ones that most people were really interested in. And then lastly, we just want to say thanks to everybody that stuck with us through all this. We know 2020 was hard for everyone in a variety of different ways. And without our customer base, without our partners, there is no way we could have grown the way we've grown in the last year and, you know, kept our sanity. So I just wanted to say a special thanks to everyone. So with that said, let's hop into some of the question and answers, our Q&A section. To Tim, thank you for the opening slide remark. Mark asks, can you put access control on comments so you can control who can see comments? Mark, not currently. We don't have any differentiation in access controls on the comment level. It's only on the asset level. But that is a good point. So we can add a feature request for you on that and see if we can implement that. So I will definitely make a note of that. Anonymous attendee asks, are you building a new guitar, modifying or existing guitar? Weird, you should ask that. Yes, I am building a new guitar. That's a Firebird knockoff that I built and painted myself. So if you're a guitar guy and you like all the stupid guitars I have hanging on the walls, that's the current project on that. All right, are there any plans for improved presentation platform to be included in Iconik? So one of the things I didn't mention about the 2021 roadmap and our kind of first foray into this is we're going to allow ordering of collections. So if you want to be able to build a collection into more of a deck, and choosing which assets viewed first and second and third, that sort of thing, that will be coming in this calendar year. I think our long-term goals are to expand that even further and to allow some degree of customization of the look and feel of shares. Admittedly, that's probably not going to happen in 2021, just because of all the other stuff we got going on. Let's see, Anonymous asks, does adding a version automatically go to the same storage gateway as the original files within the asset? No. So the way that your versioning works within the system is dependent upon where you initiate the version. That is where the version will go. So if I start a version on a storage gateway, I can create a new version of that. And the way we did this on this initial one, if we go back and take a look at version 1, you can see that the file lives in two places. It lived on my laptop in a folder, and it also lived in cloud storage. So I could have uploaded to cloud storage, or I could have put it in the same folder with the underscore notation that we did. And that's what got us to version 2. So I did it by putting it in the same storage gateway. So exactly what you're asking for. But then version 3, I actually did via a cloud upload. And then you can see version 3 technically only lives inside the cloud right now. But if I wanted to, I could very easily transfer that back to my laptop and have it live in multiple places as well. So there are ways of you consolidating that information back down if you'd like to and have the versions all live in the same places, but they don't necessarily have to. And that can be pretty good in a lot of cases because you can have dynamic workflows where remote people are working purely with cloud storage. And then when the final happens, it can get conformed down onto on-prem storage, for example. All right. Can you automatically version with file name suffixes? Yeah, so that's exactly what I did there. So if we take a look, when you're setting up Iconik's storage gateway, there is an option inside the storage gateway settings underneath scan settings for your asset version suffix. And by default, it's _V and the number. But if I wanted to have _R and 2 numbers, I could do that as well. So you get to choose what that suffix is based on the naming conventions. And what we did add late in Q4 was that these can be out of order as well. So if there's a V3 in there and then you put a V7 in there because V4 through 6 happen maybe in different locations, it will intelligently pick that up and automatically rev it the way you would want it to. Mark asks, when you correct the transcription, will it learn from the mistake if you correct it, i.e. improve the AI? So not currently. The out-of-the-box transcription is actually, we've partnered with Rev's AI system, so we're using their AI. They don't support private learning right now technically, but over time, that functionality may become available. The other thing we have is our DPA and our privacy standards. We don't give any information outside of the DPA to anybody. So private learning with open cloud systems would be pretty dicey. We'd have to really think about how we'd want to allow that or force people to opt in versus opt out. So shortly, right now for transcription, no. That said, I've noticed just in the last 6 months since Rev became a partner for launch on this, that the quality of their transcriptions have just gotten that much better because the volume of data that they're throwing at it. Marx asks, have created multiple folders for external clients with Iconik. Clients will be adding time-based comments to the same video files. While the content can exist in different folders, only tags of original content, all comments are viewable by every client. Can we restrict clients to only seeing the time-based comments they have added to the video content? So this is actually a second feature request in the same webinar for ACLs on comments. I think we'll take that into heart and actually bump it up. And Mark and the other anonymous poster that asked that, if you guys wanted to send me a direct email or just open a support ticket as well, that way we can attach you guys to that and let you know if and when we release that. But I don't see why we wouldn't at least add it to the list and think strong about it. Rob asks, is there an easy way to download a folder of raw clips at once? So currently the only easy way to do that, and I assume you mean collection, not a folder inside Iconik. Currently, the easiest way to do that is to have a storage gateway. We don't really actually have a way of doing collected downloads yet. I think our long-term goal, though, is once we release that uploader application, that can be a URL handler, and then we can do more intelligent things like grabbing an entire collection and managing the download of that. But the web browser interface doesn't really allow that whatsoever, just the way web browsers work. We're also working on adding that into Premiere so that when you do collection opens in Premiere from cloud storage, we will also support adding that to kind of a folder structure in your cache directory. So we hear you loud and clear on this. We know there's opportunities for improvement, and we have plans in mind on how to address that. So Dave asks, given the last year of data, how are customers doing understanding their consumption and cost? And by the way, we should compare Firebirds. Oh man, I love it that somebody else has got a Firebird. That's fantastic. Thanks, Dave. So I think what we've seen over the past year is that in general, the costs that most people think are going to be the highest tend to not be, which sounds a little wild, but a lot of folks are really concerned about proxy costs and egress costs. And even in very active domains, that might be 15 to 20% of most customers' environments. That's a little different if it's a small use space and a very large archive. We can see that inverse a little bit. But the controlling of costs tends to actually become less of an issue the more they use the system, because the user costs themselves are actually the highest cost in the system. And as you add more people to it, you're doing it because, frankly, it provides quite a bit of benefit to your environment. And therefore, you end up in a scenario where, yes, it costs a little bit more, but frankly, you're getting a lot more benefit out of it. So it doesn't feel like as much of a cost. Storage and infrastructure costs always feel like they're these big, heavy costs. User licenses tend not to. And also because Iconik, really, we don't charge you unless you're actively using the system. So a lot of customers we've noticed start small. They have 1 or 2 or 3 seats in it. And then once they get comfortable, they can add more people as necessary. And that really helps, battle against the capitalization problem that used to happen in collaboration and media management, where the only way you could walk in the door was cutting a 5-figure or 6-figure check. And now with Iconik, you can walk in the door and have, a lead from each team testing it out and using it for maybe a couple $100 a month to validate, that it works for them. Mark asks, any direct time-based comment downloads on the roadmap in the future would allow external client to self-service on clip approval. So one of the things I didn't mention that is on the roadmap for this year as well, but it's a smaller thing, is the ability to have items in the system or comments or time-based metadata in the system become virtual objects in the system, which means they could have their own ACLs, be organized their own way. And so now you have a virtual clip that is time-based. Tying that into our transcode framework, I don't foresee this not being something we do. So there's a very high likelihood that shows up. Whether it actually makes it into 2021 or not is kind of up to how fast we can get those other features in place, but then they become a very logical tie-in to each other. So, and it wouldn't be a stretch to get there, if that makes sense. Vitaly asks, are you working on clustering ISGs or multiple ISGs to watch the same folder structure? Currently, we're not going down that path. Our plan with the ISG kind of from day one was always, let's make it a tool that works for everybody. And by working for everybody, sometimes you leave the lowest end out and the highest end out, right? It's the middle 85% of the market that you're going to address. What we have seen, though, is some of our storage manufacturer partners, as they get bigger and bigger customers, are starting to look into our APIs and integrate further and further at the storage level with the ISG, meaning taking some of the functionality out of the ISG and using the APIs directly from their APIs and building their own bespoke solutions for their storage. And I assume as we continue to grow, build more partnerships and have more customers with large data sets, that's going to continue to happen as well. That said, if there's specific use cases where ISGs are not living up to their expectations, it's always great for us to take a look at that and figure out if it is something we can optimize. So always open ears to see what's going on there. But functionally, we can't fix the storage itself. We can only do what we can do with it. And by keeping it, generic, it is what it is. So Tom asks, any changes on integrating with InDesign as we have with Photoshop, Illustrator, so on and so forth? I think we'd like to. What we've been waiting on fundamentally, it's kind of two things. One is some degree of support from Adobe on this, and for InDesign to adopt their new panel infrastructure. We admittedly have not looked into this in the last quarter. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think from an internal perspective, it's something we've always wanted to do, but it's been very difficult to get the information out of that team, unfortunately. So do we want to? Yeah. Have we moved any further on it? Unfortunately, no. Great, everyone. I really appreciate all the questions. I think it, oh, we got one more question coming in here. So Vitaly asks, any plans on setting bidirectional sync for ISGs? So currently, we've talked about that. One of the things that we probably will do is allow automatic replication. So data that gets moved into cloud buckets could potentially be replicated down to ISGs. Synchronization becomes much bigger because now you're talking about potentially building, kind of relationships where something is considered the master of that data file. And if that thing does something, then it gets removed everywhere else. And frankly, a lot of our customers, when you really look at that in practice, becomes problematic. Think about the Dropbox scenario where somebody is working on something at location A, somebody is working on something at location B. They run out of space on their internal laptop and they say, I'm going to clear some of this stuff from Dropbox out. They delete it and it disappears from everybody else's system everywhere else. And tracking that when you have a front end system is way more difficult than it is when it's just files being pushed and pulled at the file level. So I can't say that we won't eventually get there. I would think our in our like 3-year plan, it's something we definitely want to do is get more involved in general storage management, not just the media and creative worlds. And I think part of that is having some degree of synchronization, but we really have to look at how that impacts our media customers and what they really want, because I don't think, it comes up often, but I don't think it's actually what they really want when you break it down to the fundamentals. So that's where we are with that one. All right, everyone. Well, I really appreciate it again, everyone checking in with us. If anybody has any follow-up questions that they didn't want to answer here, or they just want more clarity on, feel free to email me. It's just mike@iconik.io. And we'll connect soon. And hopefully we'll have another one of these for you before too long. And cheers, guys. Have a great day.